I greet you with Jesus' joy, for it is in him that I live, breathe, move, and have my very being. I am so glad that you joined Unboxed on Purpose today. We are a podcast created for Favored by the Father Ministries. I am Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon, your host. Our guests share how they stepped outside of comfort zones, dark places in life, or simple pivots were made toward purpose to become unboxed. We share experiences that lead to the fulfillment of God gifted purpose. So I pray that each episode will help our audience to access their authentic destiny. Today, we have with us Mike Beverly. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Barbara. How are you today?
I am doing great. We have Mike with us today who will discuss gratitude, forgiveness, and the journey to freedom. He is a dynamic professional whose journey spans music education, entrepreneurship, and holistic wellness. He is a former professional musician and music educator. Mike faced a life altering health crisis in 2020 that shifted his focus toward holistic healing. Now, he is a dedicated wellness mentor, author, and coach. He empowers others through insights on nutrition, movement, and wellness. I'm just telling you, I need to hear some of this stuff myself. His compelling book is called Hardcore: Discovering the Strength to Love and Forgive after enduring strife and dysfunction. It shares his personal transformation. He also has an upcoming release, The Healing Divide, that explores bridging the gap between traditional and alternative medicine. Residing in Central Florida with his wife Anna, Mike's story is one of resilience, faith, and a commitment to inspiring others to reclaim their health and vitality. And like I said, I am one who needs to hear about this. Mike, why don't you tell our folks how you and I know each other?
Well, Barbara, we were blessed to be on the LinkedIn platform and met one another that way. And I always reach out to people that are inspirational. That's one of the first categories or first uh, qualities I'm looking for. Someone that's inspirational, someone that's of faith, which is high on my priority list. And we met, had a wonderful conversation, and you were so gracious to invite me to share a little bit of my life and my transformation that's happened to me over the last 4.5 years.
It's just a wonderful thing. It's taken us a while to get to this pre-recording stage because I know that when I first reached out, I was doing a campaign in August of 2024, and I was looking to get people booked through the end of the year so that I would have a decent holiday season without having to do any podcasting, and we wouldn't have to skip a week. And here it is that we finally connected to make this happen. So let's just jump on out of this all that preliminary stuff and get on into who it is that you are. Tell us about your background, your childhood and teen years, where you had certain passions in life that probably propelled Mike Beverly to do the things that you're doing now. I'm going
And
to go backstage and give you open mic.
yeah, thank you, Barbara. And you're so right. My growing up in an extremely poor family, I literally grew up in a miner's shack in a little small town of Wise, Virginia. My grandfather had an apple farm, but on that farm there was a coal mine, an underground coal mine. And in the little shack that I grew up in was built out of railroad ties and dynamite boxes there. And and while it was a humble beginning, we always had clothes. My mom would always go to the Sears and Roebuck catalog and order me 2 pairs of jeans, 2 shirts, and 4 pairs of underwear, briefs, for me to go to school with that whole year. And like I said, it was a very humble beginning. And but as I grew up and started going to school in 5th grade, I had an opportunity to join the band. Well, my teacher at the time felt like that I was not qualified, or as she told my parents, Mike's not smart enough to do the band. He needs to concentrate on his schoolwork. And that really cut deeply to me. And so I was on a mission to do as much as I could to show my parents that not only could I handle the schoolwork, but that I could thrive in the band as well. Well, so my dad kept telling me, if you do really good in 6th grade, we will think about you joining band in 7th grade, because I didn't do so well in 5th grade for several reasons. I went to a 4-room country school where it was close community, and they closed those schools in Southwest Virginia and moved us all to the city school. At any rate, and that teacher I encountered didn't really have an affection for what she called the country kids. And so I didn't have a really great 5th grade year. 6th grade year, I had a really loving teacher, and I got my grades up and did well in school. But my dad still, because of the money to do an instrument, was still hesitant about letting me join the band. And
give me a moment here. I want you to resume where you left off. I'm not cutting anything off, but I am a retired reading teacher.
Okay.
I am currently a professor of adjunct work with Doctor of Ministry students, and so the educational thing is running deep in my veins. And I want to make sure that our listeners are listening as whoever it is that they are, to how people can feed your family members, your loved ones, your church members, your community members, folks in schools, regardless of who they are and what they do in the school, can feed things that will empower and encourage or destroy the motivation of our young people. I want you to hear what he said, because that's not just something that happened to him then. Depending on the individual's personality, thought processes, and the personal pains that they bring to work with them, you better talk to your folks at home and in your community and empower them, encourage them, so that they don't destroy those seeds planted early in the child to become who they authentically are. I've already given the intro. We've talking about him being a musician. He is a musician, yet there was someone in his 5th grade, he still remembers, that tried to quench that. You can take it from there, but I had to, as an educator, put that out there. As a community leader, put it out there. Oh my God, unboxed on purpose? Yeah, you stepped outside of a dark place. Keep talking. I'm going backstage. This is about you. But I had to say that.
Thank you, Barbara, for interjecting, and that was poignant what you said. But yes, that 5th grade teacher, unfortunately, one of the first few things she said to all of us in her class of about 20, 25 students, 11 of us came from these country schools, because they closed these little country schools in Virginia, and that was in 19. Let's see, 5th grade, I was 10, so it's 1963. So they closed all those schools and brought us into the city school. And so she said, boys and girls, this was her first day of school. She said, boys and girls, we might have to go a little bit slower this year, because we have so many of the country kids with us this time. And then she had told my parents, when I really, truly wanted to be in the band, because my older cousin was in there and I wanted to be in the band with him, that I was not smart enough. But I didn't let that dream go. But finally, I got to be in the band in 7th grade. And then ultimately, by the time I was in 12th grade, I was a star in music and in the band. And so at our last concert of the year, in my senior year, they were presenting awards. I'd gotten a scholarship from the local bank because I was admitted into a music school in Kentucky. And I was also the student conductor. They let a senior of the band be the student conductor each year, and I was the student conductor. After that concert at the end of the year in June of 1971, my fifth grade teacher's daughter was also in the band playing flute. I play saxophone. And so Mrs. Jennings, and if you read my book, Hardcore, that tells the story, she invited me to her home after the concert. And in her home, she took me into her private office, and with tears in her eyes, she said, I am so very sorry that I treated you the way I treated you in fifth grade. I'm so proud of the young man you've become and the accomplishments that you have achieved in your music. And I regretfully am truly, truly sorry that I treated you the way I treated you in fifth grade. So even though she affected me that way, I still had a drive and a dream to do that. But I really credit her for having the to swallow her pride and to have me over to do that. And when I went home after visiting with her after that concert and told my parents that for the first time in my life, at not quite 18, I was almost 18, I saw my father cry for the first time. And that was pretty profound.
Pause right there because this is stuff that I wasn't even expecting to come out on this show at all. Didn't know about it ahead of time, and that's why I love doing this show. There are so many things that go on in the average person's life, and when people come on this show and tell about their experiences about being unboxed, we get to see ourselves. We get to see how what we say, what we do affects other people years later. And it is a wonderful thing that God preordained it, that it will go full circle from the teacher back around to that same teacher who had a chance to show remorse. So when you do what you do you go back and let people know, I'm sorry? I want to stop there and turn it back over to you to talk about other puzzle pieces in your life, maybe joyful moments that you had, and just talk about, tell your story, pieces of the puzzle where maybe there's another time you stepped outside of the box. I probably asked you about 4 different things right there, but I'm going to go behind the stage and let you go for it because I'm excited about what you shared. It's going to help somebody, young people as well as older people, because I think this is an intergenerational audience that we have for Unboxed on purpose.
Well, I am so grateful to share because I do think there are other people and many people in my family, my wife's family who've heard my story. They go, Mike, how did you survive? How did you push through some of the things that you've shared with us? And you know, while my father was an incredibly caring man, before he stopped his drinking and his bout with alcoholism, he could be a brutal monster, and so I endured that. And one of the motivations for me as I was going through school, um, one time at the dinner table, I spilled a glass of milk, and my father, with a ring on his finger, popped me across the cheek and left a big gash in my cheek. And it literally probably needed stitches. I needed to probably go to the hospital for stitches, but I didn't go. And he demanded that I go on to band practice that evening. because we had band practice every Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8 to get ready for our marching performances at the football games. And so he made me go with that gash on my cheek. And a lot of my band friends said, Mike, what happened? What happened? Well, I didn't want to say my dad just brutally hit me. I said, oh, I was going downstairs and I slipped and hit the freezer, the corner of the freezer, and gashed my cheek. And many of them said, you need to go to the hospital. That needs stitches, and so that whole night at practice, I kept marching up and down the field, mad that, and I kept saying, I'm getting that. And I was using the F word. I'm getting the F out of here as soon as I can. It was just, I was so angry about what happened. And that he made me go in front of, 80 some other friends that were in the band to see that. And, some of them may have known the truth. I don't know. But it was one of those motivating factors. And again, in my book, Hardcore, Surviving, the strife and of the dysfunctional family that I grew up in, I chronicled that story. But it was a motivator for me. And, when my wife's heard that story, when some of family and friends have heard that story, now one of my friends that I went to college with read the book and called me up and he said, when my tears stop, I will write you an amazing review on Amazon. And because I'd never shared that story with him either. But I got through that, got my Bachelor of Music Education degree and became a band teacher. And I was so good on my instrument that I was invited my first year of teaching to play professionally. And because of that, unfortunately, in Virginia in the 70s, there was not a high pay scale, and especially in some of the rural counties where I was teaching. And I earned more money playing professionally on the weekends, just Friday and Saturday night at weddings and at different venues, than I made all year teaching school. So that was kind of the way I went throughout my life. And ultimately, because of my drive and because of my work ethic, I ended up creating some really fine music organizations, even in the little rural county, Russell County, Virginia, that Castlewood, Virginia, at that time in 1975 had a population of maybe 1,000 people. But we had a nice little high school there, a couple elementary schools. And I developed a really amazing music organization there and got some notoriety and was ultimately chosen to be a graduate assistant at the University of South Carolina, where one of the people there, actually the director of bands at the University of South Carolina, had heard about me through some of the mutual contacts in the music education realm and invited me to come and be a graduate assistant, meaning that for a number of years, 3 years, I could go to school there, get my master's all the way through my doctorate, and get paid while I was there. I got to go to school for free and get paid to work with the band. And it gave me really a true dream that ultimately that I wanted to be a college band director as well.
This is great stuff because I see a thread with your music, with your background being woven through life. I see that same thread spinning itself into the minds, hearts, and motivational spaces of young people who know who they are, but need a push in the direction of achieving and pursuing. And so let's leave it right there and push a little bit more into being unboxed with particular topics that are your specialty in terms of you being the entrepreneur, because you just made a comment about the money that you would make on the side as compared to the full-time position that you had in pursuit of the holistic wellness with regard to what happened to you in 2020. Just go toward all of that stuff from where you are right now, because you've got so many things to share, and I want to hear how those pieces come together.
Well, thank you, Barbara. And yeah, as I finished there and then ultimately went back into music education, now in South Carolina, I had developed a really high quality music organization there at a school in Rock Hill, South Carolina, right below Charlotte. And and as a result, we were invited to play in various venues, not only all over the state of South Carolina, but the United States as well. And to do those, to make those trips and to do those performances requires a lot of money. And so we were constantly doing fundraising. And and one of the companies that we did fundraising with, we were able to raise uh, over a 1 week period with about 200 students in our group, um, over $30,000. And that got the attention of the fundraising organization that was helping us with that fundraising drive. And the owner of the company came from Indiana, where the headquarters of that company was, to talk to me and want to find out how we could set records that his company had never seen before. And I said, well, not only um, are the students excited about what we're doing, but they're also motivated because it was during the 10th anniversary of Walt Disney World, and they picked one high school organization or high school band from all 50 states to come and perform at what they called the 10th the 10th anniversary of Disney World. And our band was the pick from the state of South Carolina. So the students were highly motivated to do that. Plus, we had another trip and performance that we got to do at a very prominent music festival in Charleston, South Carolina, called the Spoleto Festival. A composer from Italy, Carlo Menotti, uh, relocated from Italy to Charleston, South Carolina, started this famous music festival, and our group was honored and chosen to perform there as well. So they were motivated by that, but the company wanted to hire me to be a representative for them. So ultimately, that happened, and they ended up moving me to Central Florida, where I've been for the last 42 years. And I did that for them until they went out of business. And I had a choice at that point when they went out of business to either go work for a similar company or to start my own company. And being kind of a self starter and someone who was not afraid of risk, I just thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for myself. And so we did, and we got that going. Albeit it was quite a challenge to not only find suppliers for the products we needed, but to find facilities, offices, warehouses, and all that. But over a period of 15, 20 years, we developed it into an extremely successful, profitable, and thriving business.
That sounds wonderful. When you're thinking about and talking about all these experiences from back in the day, are there any regrets that you have, or is there anything that you would, any advice that you would give yourself, maybe for 30 years ago that you wish you had known that you know now?
The advice I would give myself, Barbara, is I would be a little less impulsive and a lot more patient.
Any more you want to dump on the table about that? You don't have to.
No, it's just that I earlier on, that was most of that happened in my mid to late 30s,
Mm-hmm.
and I was highly driven, and I think I think my upbringing probably implanted that. I had to be to survive. Um,
Yes,
but probably if I'd have just slowed down, probably stopped and said, Lord, is this really the plan you want me to be on and the direction you want my life to go? And just stopped and listened. Things would have been a lot less stressful
I see.
and 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 probably gone a lot smoother um, for me ultimately, I think. And that's been true so many times in my life. I've been too impulsive, and and ultimately um, because of my impatience, because of my impulsiveness, but also my my I'm trying to think of the proper word, my absence in being faithful to the Lord.
Mm,
Away from it. My wife never did. She prayed constantly. She was in the Bible every day, and I wasn't. And so, over about a 20-year period of straying from the Lord
mm-hmm.
and abusing my body physically from overwork and from horrible diet and alcohol abuse, it led me to my medical crisis in March of 2020, where I almost died.
You
And
you are right where my mind is because I really wanted you to talk about how you move through all of these things and into a place where you were writing, and I think that's where you are right now. Talk to us about that place in 2020, and then how that connects to the writing, the things that you put in the books and all that kind of stuff,
right.
and the whole holistic idea. I'm going backstage and let you have it.
All right. Thank you, Barbara. Well, as I mentioned in 2020, after going through a lot of self abuse, I was really everything that I experienced on March 14th when they carried me out of this house on a gurney. And I looked into my wife's eyes and I realized that it's quite possible I will never be back in this house again alive. uh, it, that was a real reckoning for me because, as I mentioned, I'd done this to myself through my own self abuse. But God is so good. When I got into the hospital, and I was told that the internal bleeding that I was experiencing could not be stopped, and also because that was right at the beginning of the COVID quarantine and they kicked my wife out of the hospital, there I was alone in the hospital, knowing that this might be it. But as God works in so mysteriously, in so many mysterious ways, He stopped my internal bleeding that they could not stop. And I came home a few days later, so weak and so incapacitated that I was bedridden. And consequently, I was becoming pretty depressed, and the devil was working on me overtime, giving me thoughts of this is not, I don't need to be here. I don't need to be a burden on my wife or anyone else. And some very evil thoughts were crossing my mind. But as God always does, He always answers prayers. And lots of people were praying for me. And I had happened to through a pastor friend of mine reluctantly join a men's study group with several successful Christian businessmen across the country. And one of the gentlemen in that group had heard about my challenge and reached out to me and told me about a new medical science breakthrough that had saved his wife's life a few years prior. And I availed myself of this new medical science technology called redox cell signaling molecules. And lo and behold, within 2 weeks, I went from being bedridden to having my life back. But in 6 weeks, when I went in for follow-up blood work, it literally blew the doctor's minds, because they had told me before I left the hospital that if I didn't do a blood transfusion, which uh, I was not open to do that, and I had my own personal reasons for why. If I didn't do that, that I would be bedridden for 6 months, possibly as long as a year, to get my hemoglobin and my iron levels back. Well, in 6 weeks of consuming the redox cell signaling molecule supplement, which is basically the liquid that is found in all of our human cells. When we're born, God fills our cells up, where our cells are nice and round and plump. And that liquid around the cells is redox cell signaling molecules. It's been known for decades, but forever they thought that it was impossible to duplicate that liquid that God made. But some very brilliant scientists did it. And so now, for the first time in human history, there's a supplement where we can put that back into our body so our body can heal itself the way God intended.
It is amazing that God created us in his own image, and he allows us to go through stuff that will allow us to turn our lives and our attentions back to him. And so I thank you so much for sharing those insights as to how even in 2020, where there's a terrible crisis going on in the whole world, God used some things in your life to turn you actually back to him. And so here it is now that you are writing about these things and putting it out there for other people to know about. So tell us a little bit more about your what your books are. You've got one that's already out, you've got one that's coming out, and how people can get their hands on them.
Yes, the Hardcore, the book about my personal life and growing up there in that small town in Virginia, is out now. And then the Healing Divide will be coming out in by June of 2025. And that is the subtitle of the book is Why We Resist Alternative and Natural Healing Modalities. And there's really an amazing reason for it. Uh, the second chapter in that book is called The Science of Skepticism. And it's a pretty amazing concept, but it has been a concept that has been programmed in the world psyche for 80, 90 years.
This is some fascinating stuff that you're talking about, and I don't want you to give all your details away. I want them to actually get your books and read them when they are both available. So would you tell us how they can find them? We'll scroll it across the top of the screen.
Right, right. That both books are on Amazon, and they'll be there available. And I've already been asked, actually, this morning at our local Chamber of Commerce monthly breakfast, one of the people who had bought my book and complained that the print was a little too small asked me if I was going to do an Audible book about it. And
Oh,
he's about the fifth person that's asked me about the Audible book of Hardcore, which I will ultimately do now.
absolutely. Do you have a website?
I do. My website is www.mikebeverly, MikeBeverly .life, LIFE.
Wonderful stuff here. Any other ways that the audience can reach out to you? If there are, we can do that right now.
Yes, they can reach out to me at that website and schedule a time to chat, or they can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok.
Wonderful. You share all those links with me, and I'll make sure that when we do the editing, they are put there so people can see exactly what your handles are and what your titles are. In our closing comments here, I want you to project into the future where there are generations who are yet unborn. How do you suggest that our listeners and the generations yet unborn address challenges that keep them stuck in a box?
The first thing I would advise them to do is pray. Number one, pray and ask our amazing God to unveil their plan and their purpose and help them to find that plan and their purpose. And not only that, to take time, be patient, and listen to loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
listen to your inner voice, which is typically God speaking to us,
Yes.
and just slow down and realize that every moment that you live and breathe is a gift from God.
You have shared some dynamic thoughts with us, and I pray that people will not only listen to this, but will press play and re listen and press the natural buttons that will help them share it with others who need to hear it. So, thank you so very much, Mike Beverly, for being on our show today.
It is my pleasure and my honor that you asked me.
I want our listening audience to join us every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We release episodes on Thursdays for our Unboxed on Purpose with restorative conversations, refreshing insights that shape our future, but also our right now. We do post the episodes weekly, and once I put them up, I don't take them down on our YouTube channel, Favored by the Father Ministries, on our Facebook page, on LinkedIn, and most podcast platforms. I would like to share that our logo shares a butterfly coming out of a dark box. So as we evolve, we are like the butterfly coming out of boxes and allowing the Holy Spirit to advance us to immeasurable, lofty levels in the Lord. I want you to fulfill your purpose. I want you to bloom where you're planted, to grow your intimacy, your relationship with the Lord as you ponder poignant points that the Lord gives you through all kinds of conversations and experiences. Grow in grace as you remain favored by the Father. Thanks for joining us.